Chosen one, the world does not always move loudly around your presence, but it is never still. When you enter a room, something shifts, not in force, not in spectacle, but in a quiet, unshakable certainty. Feminine women feel it before they understand it, a ripple of something primal yet peaceful that passes through their skin and into their spirit. They sense something rare, a man who does not demand attention, yet commands it, a man who does not dominate space, yet owns it. And so they watch you, not because they must, but because something within them aches to. Their eyes linger on you in stillness, as if drawn by a gravity they never studied but always longed for. They trace the lines of your jaw, the patience in your breath, the unspoken depth behind your gaze. And in that silence, they remember the kind of man they once believed had gone extinct. You don't move fast, you don't speak to impress, you don't posture or seek validation. You simply are. That stillness is your signature. It steadies them, it confuses them, it intoxicates them. And as they study you longer, careful not to be noticed, careful not to reveal the soft glow awakening behind their lips, they begin to feel a surprising emotion bloom behind their ribs. Gratitude. They are grateful that you exist, not because you chose them, not because you complimented them, not even because you touched them, but because your presence, so rooted, so whole, offers their femininity a kind of reflection it rarely sees. It's not about how you look, it's about what you carry. Something ancient, something true, something their bones trust, even if their minds remain unsure. You see, chosen one, their gratitude is not an offering of weakness, it is the trembling realization that finally they do not have to lead. Finally they are seen not as ornaments, not as objects, but as temples worthy of slow devotion. And though they may never say it, though their pride, their past, or their caution may bind their words, the way their gaze softens, the way their shoulders lower, the way their laughter loses its nervousness, it speaks for them. They are grateful for the way you make them feel without ever trying. Because a man who knows his value without flaunting it has always been the most dangerous kind, and the most needed. Chosen one, the world has asked much of the feminine. It has asked her to be both soft and sharp, alluring and alert, obedient and assertive. She has carried herself through centuries of contradiction, often smiling with a clenched jaw, giving with an empty cup, offering kindness in environments where survival, not softness, was the law. But when she comes into your orbit, when her spirit recognizes the slow fire you carry, something ancient inside her shifts. It does not happen immediately, it does not rush, but little by little, her body begins to remember something she forgot. Safety, not the kind promised by words, not the kind scribbled into laws or wrapped in gestures, but the real kind, the kind she can feel in the way your eyes do not dart like a hunter's, but rest like a guardian's. In the way your voice lands in her chest with a weight that feels like home, not a threat. In the way you don't rush her to open, to soften, to give, because you don't need anything from her to validate who you are. That, chosen one, is what her nervous system responds to. She begins to breathe deeper. She forgets to overanalyze. She feels her muscles unclench for the first time in years. Her smile becomes less practiced, more instinctive, and her laughter, it comes from her belly, not her performance. She is grateful, not because you gave her something, but because you asked for nothing and still made her feel everything. This gratitude is sacred. It lives in her posture, in the way she closes her eyes around you as if soaking in a silence she never realized she missed, in the way she stops preparing for disappointment, in the way her mind, so used to calculating exit strategies, simply rests. There is no adrenaline, no subtle brace for disrespect, no subconscious scan for red flags, only presence. Because you, chosen one, are not an intruder in her space. You are the quiet clearing she forgot existed. You are the exhale she never expected to find in another's arms. You are the final confirmation that yes, a man can burn with sexual power without ever making her feel preyed upon. And that kind of masculinity, disciplined, grounded, unthreatened, is not just rare, it is divine. So, when she stands beside you and her voice grows soft, when her fingers reach for yours without thought, when her smile lingers longer than reason demands, know this, chosen one. It is not flirtation, it is not compliance, it is not conquest. It is her way of saying thank you for allowing her to stop surviving and simply be. Chosen one, there is a moment you rarely catch because you are not looking for it, but it happens often and always without warning. When you speak, not loudly, not to boast, not to dominate, but from that deep, slow place of still awareness within you, her gaze changes. Not just her eyes, her being. Something in her turns toward you as if summoned, not by force but by gravity. And you may not see it because it's not performed. It's involuntary. She becomes still. She listens, but not like the world taught her to. She listens with her soul. It is the kind of listening that cannot be faked, the kind that happens when a woman's defenses collapse without being touched. You did not charm her. You did not corner her with clever words. You simply spoke, and your voice carried something ancient in its current, something whole, something unbothered by outcome. And so her feminine nervous system, tired of noise and posturing, found itself magnetized to the rarest sound in her universe, a man who doesn't need to prove he is one. She doesn't always understand what you say, not because it lacks clarity, but because your presence is louder than your words. And in that presence, chosen one, she hears her own desire echoing back. A desire not for validation, not for entertainment, not even for attention, but for truth. And your voice, laced with it, becomes a song her heart has waited to hear. When you speak, her mind doesn't race, it calms. Because you don't speak to dominate, you speak to offer clarity, to restore peace, to reintroduce reason into a world of confusion. She finds herself forgetting the time. She forgets her rehearsed responses. She stops calculating how she looks and starts remembering who she is. You didn't ask for her full attention, but she gives it to you anyway, because the space you hold when you speak is not something she can ignore. It demands no applause, but it invites trust. You are not telling her what to do. You are simply being who you are, out loud. And that bold authenticity, unmasked, unhurried, is what calls her to you. In a world where men shout over each other to be heard, you whisper without apology. And she listens. Not because you are loud, but because you are real. Her gratitude grows not from what you say, but from how you say it. From the way your words are rooted in something beyond momentary confidence, from the stillness beneath your sentences, from the silence that makes every syllable sacred. She cannot look away, and even if she tried, her soul would linger. Because when you speak, chosen one, her feminine spirit hears what it has been craving for generations. Not noise, not seduction, but stability. And that makes her grateful in ways she cannot describe. So she shows it the only way she knows how. She watches, she softens, she stays. Chosen one, what they never told you is that feminine beauty does not bloom under force. It blooms in response to safety, not safety of protection alone, but safety of presence, of awareness, of space held with unwavering stillness. And when you, in the fullness of your sexual energy, bring that sacred calm into her storm, something hidden inside her begins to rise. It is not immediate, it does not announce itself, but she feels it first in her breath. It slows, then in her body, it softens, and finally, in her eyes. They begin to gleam, not with flirtation, but with recognition. She doesn't know what to call it. All she knows is that around you she begins to feel like more of herself. The masks begin to fall, the armor rusts and slips from her shoulders. The pretending ends. Why? Because your energy does not require her to perform. You don't ask her to be anything but present. You don't chase, you don't corner, you don't sell, you simply are. And in your stillness, her femininity is not provoked. It is invited, not into chaos, not into frenzy, but into calm fire. You are a storm, yes, but a storm of containment, of unshakable discipline, the kind that doesn't destroy, the kind that defines the atmosphere. And in that atmosphere she can feel, deeply, fully, freely. Her sensuality awakens, not in rebellion or shame, but in reverence. Her laughter becomes lighter. Her gaze becomes liquid. Her movement becomes a dance she didn't know she remembered. Around you, she does not second-guess her softness. She does not hold back her warmth. Because you, chosen one, are not here to steal her light. You are here to amplify it by being the ground she can bloom upon. She does not feel chased. She feels chosen. And there is a world of difference between the two. Because when a man radiates sexual energy from alignment, not hunger, he does not seek to consume. He seeks to awaken. And what awakens in her presence, her grace, her glow, her slow power, was never lost. It was waiting. Waiting for the moment her feminine nature felt honored, not handled, worshipped, not worn out. celebrated, not controlled. You, chosen one, bring that moment to life. And that is why she is grateful, not just for how you look, not just for how you feel, but for how you make her feel about herself when you are near. Around others, she must prove. Around you, she simply is. And in that rare permission, she falls, not into dependency, but into awe. Chosen one, in a world that often forces her to overthink, overanalyze, and second-guess her every move, something rare happens when she's near you. She begins to trust not just your words, but the space between them. She doesn't need all the answers, doesn't need to predict your every intention, because your presence feels truer than her own spiraling thoughts. And that's not because she's weak or naive, but because your energy speaks louder than logic. It is your calm, unapologetic depth that becomes the anchor her soul leans toward when everything else feels uncertain. You are not the loudest man in the room. You are the one whose silence carries weight. Not heavy with ego, but rich with knowing. You don't interrupt her chaos, you absorb it without flinching. You don't fix her emotions, you see them. And the moment she feels seen, not as an idea, not as an object, but as a woman full of layered emotion, something ancient and sacred begins to trust you. Not because you did anything spectacular, but because you did not retreat, you did not recoil, you stayed, you breathed, you held. In your stillness, she realizes she doesn't have to defend herself. She doesn't need to perform her pain or justify her joy. She doesn't need to talk fast, speak perfect, or manage your impressions. You are already aware of her. And your awareness is not a weapon, it's a warm field, a place where she can pause and breathe and trust. And trust for her is not built on logic. It's built on feel. And you, chosen one, feel like peace. Her body begins to know before her mind catches up. Her posture shifts subtly, her eyes stay longer, her voice softens when she speaks to you. And she may not even understand it at first, why she feels safer beside you than with men she's known longer. It's because your sexual energy is not wildfire. It is concentrated warmth, a silent, invisible hearth she can feel from across the room. And that warmth tells her everything she needs to know. You don't seek to control her. You don't seek to seduce her. You invite her. You invite her into your world with a gaze that does not demand submission but awakens devotion. And she trusts it. Not because you forced her to, but because your consistency built a foundation beneath her fear. Your inner clarity made it safe for her to feel again. Your unapologetic masculinity gave her permission to surrender. Not her will, but her worry. She realizes she doesn't need to run anymore. Not from men, not from herself. Because your presence is not something she has to escape. It is something she begins to crave. Not out of desperation, but out of relief. She trusts you, not because of what you say, but because of what you are when you say nothing at all. Chosen one, do you know what it means when a woman cries in front of you? Not out of shame or sorrow, but because she finally feels safe enough to feel? It means your presence has cracked through the walls she forgot she built. It means your soul didn't tremble when she revealed her scars. And it means your masculinity didn't run when her emotions rose like the ocean tide. It breathed through the waves. That's not just rare, that's holy. Her femininity is not just curves and softness. It is wild, untamed emotion that tests the edges of everything around it. It tests men, not to manipulate, but to find one who will stay. To find one whose soul doesn't flinch when she becomes too much, too loud, too deep, too radiant. And you, chosen one, do not just stay. You expand. You welcome her storms without needing to cage them. You walk into her fire without the fear of being consumed. Because your masculine soul is not afraid of depth. It was built for it. You don't need her to be small so you can feel large. You don't silence her power so you can echo your own. You meet her intensity not with resistance, but with reverence. And because of that, something beautiful happens. Her feminine heart, long hidden behind defenses and doubt, opens like a slow sunrise. Not all at once, but gradually, carefully, deliberately. It tests your presence again and again, not to destroy it, but to trust that it's real. That it doesn't evaporate when emotions rise. That it doesn't shift when she shifts. That it doesn't vanish when she reveals the fullness of herself. And yours doesn't. You are the mountain she can scream at and still be loved. You are the deep lake she can weep beside without drowning. You are the flame that doesn't burn her but reminds her of her own warmth. And in the reflection of your stillness, she sees the truth. She is not too much. She is exactly enough. Because finally her feminine energy has found a masculine soul who knows how to hold, not with his hands, but with his presence. And that kind of holding doesn't control. It frees. You didn't break her walls. You made her feel safe enough to lower them. And now she opens, not to the world, not to all men, but to you. Because you, chosen one, are not afraid of her. And that is why she chooses you. Not once, not twice, but again and again. Not because you demand her love, but because your presence deserves it. Chosen one, her energy has never been easy. It wasn't designed to be. She is thunder wrapped in starlight, unpredictable as the ocean and tender as moonlight over quiet fields. The world has tried to tame her, to ask her to dim, to shrink, to choose silence over radiance. But she never wanted to be tamed. She only ever wanted to be understood. And when she met you, chosen one, something in her felt seen, not in fragments but as a whole. As if without needing to be told, you already knew she was built of fire and longing and complexity. And instead of retreating, you leaned closer. You studied her, not to define her, but to understand what her presence was saying in silence. You didn't tell her to calm down. You didn't ask her to behave. You didn't place her in a neat little box of acceptable femininity. You let her unfold. And in that sacred allowance, she bloomed not like a flower in a garden, but like a forest reborn after fire. Wild, strong, utterly breathtaking. It wasn't your compliments that drew her. It was the truth in your gaze, the way your eyes didn't try to consume her but honored her intensity. You didn't flinch when her voice trembled with too much passion. You didn't avoid her when her emotions roared like weather. You simply stood your ground with a steady soul and a fierce patience that said, I see all of you, and none of you is too much for me. Chosen one, she has tested the waters of many men, only to be told she was too loud, too opinionated, too emotional, too alive. But with you, she felt no need to shrink. You didn't just handle her strength, you admired it. You didn't just admire it, you reflected it back to her with the steadiness of a man who has faced his own chaos and stood victorious in his own healing. She felt you weren't guessing who you were, and that gave her permission to know herself again. Her wildness softened around you, not because you demanded it, but because she finally felt safe enough to let her guard fall. Her laughter became freer, her movements slower, her words more honest. She didn't try to impress you because she didn't have to. You made her feel that simply being unfiltered and fully present was beautiful. You didn't need her to perform, you needed her to be. And that, chosen one, was the rarest gift you could offer a woman who had always been asked to be smaller. So she came closer, slowly, carefully, not because you pulled her in, but because your stillness magnetized her. Your sexual energy wasn't a force of pressure, it was a force of permission. And for a woman like her, who had spent a lifetime hardening her edges to survive, that permission was everything. You didn't tame her. You didn't want to. You gave her space to remember that she was never meant to be tamed at all. She was meant to be understood. And you, chosen one, were the only man with enough depth to understand her. Chosen one, there is a moment that happens before a woman ever speaks her feelings. A moment when her body stills and her eyes find yours. Not to seek approval, but to witness you, to see if you are who she hopes you are. She won't say anything, not at first, but her gaze will hold questions, soft panic, and subtle longing all at once. That look, chosen one, is where her truth begins. And you don't need her to explain it. You hear her through the silence. Feminine energy speaks in glances, in lingering hesitations, in softened shoulders and shifting breath. You have become fluent in the language that requires no sound. And because you see her, not just look at her, she feels understood before she is touched. That's rare. That's powerful. That's the kind of magnetism that can't be faked. It's the type that makes a woman drop her guard in the middle of a crowd, just because your eyes met hers for 3 seconds longer than they should have. But those 3 seconds were enough. She felt your presence. She felt your strength. And most of all, she felt your listening. Not with your ears, but with your soul. You don't interrupt her silence. You let it echo. You let it stretch until her truth feels safe enough to crawl from the quiet and into your care. You don't rush her story. You wait. You breathe. You receive. And when she finally speaks, it's never from fear. It's from safety. Because your presence is not a place of interrogation. It is a place of invitation. Chosen one, there are women who will never tell you what you meant to them, but their eyes will soften when you enter the room. Their breath will change when your name is spoken. Their defenses will crumble at the sound of your calm, not because you tried to impress them, but because you heard them before they even spoke. And that kind of knowing, deep, quiet, unwavering, is more erotic, more powerful, more magnetic than anything else. That is the gift of a man whose sexual energy is not scattered but anchored. A man whose masculinity is not about domination but deep presence. And so they remember you. They return to you, in dreams, in thoughts, in moments when they need grounding, because you are not just the man they once spoke with. You are the man who understood their soul before it was even uttered. You became a mirror they could finally trust, not because you were perfect, but because you were present. And that, chosen one, is why they never forget your gaze. Chosen one, you have walked through the lives of many women not as a storm, not as a thief, but as a sanctuary they didn't know they were searching for. Most men arrive with noise, promises, agendas. But you, your presence whispers instead of shouts. And in that whisper, feminine women feel something they rarely find: rest. You do not chase with chaos, nor lure with illusions. You simply are. And that being, rooted, full, calmly magnetic, draws their deepest layers into the light. Not because you ask them to, but because your stillness speaks louder than any demand. She once wore her strength like armor, not because she wanted to, but because the world taught her that softness was dangerous. She built walls, tall ones, around her heart, sharpened her tongue into wit, rehearsed detachment like a survival tactic. And yet, around you, something began to melt. Not quickly, not dramatically, but naturally, like the first warmth of spring seeping into winter ground. Her body stopped bracing, her eyes stopped scanning for escape. She didn't realize at first, but she laughed differently with you. Her voice had more air. Her hands didn't tremble when they reached for yours. Chosen one, you must understand. This is not because you pursued her harder. This is because your energy told her that you were not afraid of her truth, that you would not punish her for her wounds or retreat when her vulnerability finally surfaced. You did not need to rescue her. You needed only to remain when others fled. And that, your remaining, was the miracle. In your gaze, she found a kind of listening she never knew she craved. In your presence, she didn't have to justify her intensity. And when she cried, not loud, not in crisis, but the quiet kind of tears that slip out when the soul exhales, you didn't tell her to stop. You let her weep, not out of sadness, but because something in her finally felt safe enough to release. That safety wasn't built on soft words. It was built on your spiritual gravity, your anchored masculinity, your erotic calm, the feeling that nothing in her could unnerve you. Other men had admired her body. Some had even adored her wit. But you, the chosen one, you revered her wholeness. You loved not only what was beautiful, but also what was broken. You touched her without touching and made her feel beautiful in the silence between your words. That's why her guard fell. Not because you demanded access, but because you gave her no reason to fear it. You didn't break through her walls. You made the walls irrelevant. That is how a woman trusts a man without needing to say it. And that chosen one is how love begins its sacred unfolding. Chosen one, women don't always speak about the man who left them breathless. Not in words, not in stories, but in the way they dream. In the way they slow down at night when the world grows quiet and the memory of a certain man rises like mist, unexpected, soft, unshakable. That man is you. Not because you were louder, not because you conquered her, but because you made her soul feel like it had been remembered. As if in the sea of eyes that had scanned her surface, yours were the only ones that looked in and bowed. You made her feel not possessed, but met. You didn't just notice her curves, you noticed her contradictions. You saw her anger and didn't shrink. You held her uncertainty like it was something holy. You didn't ask her to be less. You expanded to meet her. And that expansion, that quiet, masculine stretching of energy to hold her storm, left her unable to forget you. Now she dreams of you not as a fantasy, but as a mirror. In her deepest intuition, she knows your presence was not an accident. You arrived at the exact moment her spirit was ready to be seen. You didn't come to complete her. You came to remind her of who she already was. And that memory, the one you reawakened in her, now lives in every breath she takes. She doesn't look for you because she's desperate. She remembers you because she felt herself more clearly in your presence. Other men tried to win her with tactics. You won her with truth. Other men brought gifts. You brought clarity. Others gave her attention. You gave her a mirror, a reflection of her feminine soul cradled in the hands of your masculine silence. And that reflection did something irreversible. It broke her cycle of distrust. It shattered her belief that no man could hold both her softness and her power. And now, no matter who comes after you, they will all be compared to how she felt in your gaze. Chosen one, it is not your voice she hears in her dreams. It is your stillness. It is the way you didn't flinch when she showed her shadows. It is the way you made her feel like love was not something she had to earn, but something she had always deserved. She may never tell you. She may never return. But know this, you have become a fixed constellation in her inner sky. A guide, a story, a man whose beauty didn't come from looks alone, but from the unchanging fire of your sacred masculine essence. And that, chosen one, is the legacy you leave in the hearts of women who know truth when they feel it. Chosen one, there's a rhythm inside you now, a steady, undisturbed current moving through your being like a song the world forgot. It does not rush, it does not stutter, it does not tremble for approval or stumble into confusion when met with beauty. It is the masculine rhythm, ancient, silent, sovereign. You do not borrow this rhythm from books or mimic it from those pretending to hold it. No. This rhythm was forged inside you, in the places no one saw. In the long nights, you sat alone in your fire and refused to abandon yourself. That rhythm, now, is the heartbeat of your presence. You walk differently now. You speak differently. You breathe as if time is yours to command. Because in truth, it is. You do not live in urgency anymore. You do not live for the chase. You live in rhythm. And that rhythm is what women feel before they even see your face. Feminine women, attuned to flow, to subtlety, to resonance, they feel the rhythm you carry and they recognize it as something holy, something real, something that no flirtation, no wealth, no cleverness could ever fake. Because this rhythm cannot be mimicked, it can only be embodied. You have become the man who moves as if he remembers who he is. And that remembrance is not arrogance, it is not flair, it is not showmanship. It is the quiet dignity of someone who has returned to his own sacred tempo and stopped dancing to the noise of others. You are no longer seduced by velocity. You are drawn only to what matches your frequency. And so the world adjusts itself when you enter, not because you command it, but because your rhythm sets the tone. The feminine notices. She feels safe in it. She feels her own rhythm settle near you. And that is the power that makes her speak of you in whispers, call you a superstar, not for the way you dazzle, but for the way you don't need to. You are a man who can hold the electric tension of attraction without jumping forward to release it. You can sit with beauty, with craving, with fire in your chest, and not move. Because your rhythm is not governed by emotion anymore. It is governed by alignment. You are no longer reactive. You are tuned, calibrated, rooted. That rooting is what stuns the feminine. She sees in you a man who no longer lets his desire control him, yet is not numb. You are not cold, you are alive. But that aliveness has shape, structure, sacred masculine form, and it allows her to relax, to trust, to breathe, because around you there is no chaos, only pulse, only truth, only a rhythm that moves through the world not to dominate it, but to stabilize it. You do not ask for reverence, but reverence now follows you, because true rhythm can be felt. It is primal. It is timeless. It cannot be purchased or faked. And when a woman feels it, truly feels it, she does not forget. Her body remembers, her soul remembers. Because rhythm, when true, awakens everything asleep inside her. And that, chosen one, is what you've become. Not a performer of masculinity, but the keeper of rhythm. And the feminine in her deepest wisdom bows quietly to it, without needing to be told why. Chosen one, there is something happening around you now that no mirror can show and no camera can capture. It is not just your posture, your gaze, or your voice. It is the atmosphere your soul generates when you enter a room. It is your aura. And this aura is no accident. It is the byproduct of every choice you've made to align with your highest frequency and stay there, especially when no one was watching. Your aura does not shimmer with decoration or drama. It hums with depth. It breathes with clarity. It pulses with grounded sexual energy that is no longer loud or wild, but magnetic. And that magnetism is not about looks or words. It is about vibration. You are no longer chasing moments, you are altering them. The room responds to you now. The temperature of presence shifts. Conversations slow. Attention turns, gently, involuntarily. Not because you made a scene, but because you are a new scene entirely. The feminine notices immediately. Not because she is looking for you, but because you shift the air when you arrive.